Hey guys, Sleepy Reader here. My morning commute. It's 5:38 in the morning. I'm heading to work. So this is an experiment. You get to see a dark and rainy street. I'm crossing the bridge actually right now, across the Willamette River. So whether I can talk while driving, especially in the dark and in the rain, we'll see. And whether you can hear me, and anyway, this is all an experiment. I actually just finished reading a whole bunch of issues of Uncanny X-Force. I think that's what it's called. The one where Wolverine leads a bunch of killers out to kill bad guys who there's nothing else you can do about them. Written by Rick Remender. Whoops. I wonder if we can recover from that. I think that's the only really sharp curve in my route. Now I'm heading uphill. It's not too much traffic at 5:30 in the morning, but more than you would expect. Excuse me. So, Uncanny X-Force is written by Rick Remender and has a number of artists on it, most notably Phil Noto was the name I recognized. Although there was another artist on it that I thought was very good, and unfortunately I can't remember his name right now. His drawing was a bit more scratchy and gritty than Phil Noto. So I read, in a row, I read issues 26 through 32. So I think I'm up to the current issue, which is still to be continued. I assume the storyline's going to wrap up in the next issue or two before Marvel Now starts. But it took me quite a while to figure out everything that was going on, which Brandon warned me about. Brandon sent me the digital codes to all these issues, and he warned me that it was going to be really hard to figure out. I eventually did. Part of what I had to do is read an issue and then read the summary in the next issue to explain what I just read. And eventually I started picking up on everything. And it's really an incredibly well done comic, and yet at the same time brings up to my mind, or brings into my mind, reasons why maybe I don't like current Marvel comics as well as I should. This comic is full of contemplations of whether it's right to kill someone or not, and who makes those decisions, and full of father-son issues, mother-daughter issues, mother-son issues, all kinds of complicated moral, philosophical, psychological stuff. But it's also, way over the top, full of all kinds of grotesqueries and violence that's kind of off the scale. Lot of imaginatively done, grotesque, gory stuff. In a way, in the best tradition of post-Dark Knight Returns, where you really, really push things and you really explore what all this superhero stuff might really mean. But not at all, other than that, not at all derivative of the Dark Knight. Remender's imagination feels very original, although, since I'm not fully immersed in the X part of the Marvel universe, there may be lots of elements, I'm sure there's lots of elements that he's gotten from other writers in the X universe. But the way he puts it all together, and the moral conundrums he creates, and the sort of extremities that he pushes things to, I think are mostly his own. And I think that what Marvel has done, sort of outside of their endless crossovers, which to me are kind of a train wreck, but beyond the endless crossovers, a lot of what they've done, maybe in the last 10 years, is, as they say, as their editor loves to say, they found the best writers and they just let them go. And they really do let, these really good writers like Remender totally deconstruct and destroy and rip the guts out of these characters. And that's fun, and it reminds me of how I really liked The Ultimates by Mark Millar. He was kind of doing the same thing with the X-Men, but he was doing it in the Ultimate Universe. And it's more, with Marvel doing that with a lot of their characters in their regular universe, it's a lot harder to jump in and out as a reader. What you thought you knew about Wolverine or what you thought you knew about other characters is all so much in play. I'm not getting right at my point that I really want to make, but it's almost like I want something less creative or less dynamic for my regular superheroes. I want a slightly more stable moral universe and a slightly less gonzo approach to everything. Because in a way you have to have read every single issue of Uncanny X-Force and probably a lot of the other X-Men stuff to get exactly what Remender is doing and undoing and spoofing and pushing to extremes. You have to know everything. So it's both less comfortable and less accessible because you have to really know what he's working on. So that may be one of the reasons why right now I like DC better. I can just hop on books, and for the most part, they aren't too far gone. They're within sort of a certain parameter that I can understand easily, and I don't have to have read 30 issues, and I don't have to feel the heroes are really being destroyed as heroes, if you see what I'm saying. So, I've really liked over the years all kinds of comic books that deconstruct superheroes or play with them in other ways. But I guess I still want that. I want the mainline Marvel superheroes and the mainline DC superheroes to be straight arrows, to play, as sophisticated as they can, but play within sort of a limited set of rules and continue the pleasures of heroes who are heroes and kind of leave it at that and allow me a simple enough story so that I don't have to have read 10 issues in a row. And certainly plenty of DC books have kind of endless continuity. Wonder Woman comes straight to mind. You really, in the current new DCU, you need to have read Wonder Woman number 1 through 13 to really get it all. And even then, you will need to read even more issues to get it all. But still, even there, which is maybe more extreme than it should be, they're building Wonder Woman up. They're not tearing her down. And although they've changed her universe a lot, they're still dealing with the basic qualities of a hero. And there's a certain solidity and consistency. Everything in the Marvel universe now, when I read it, just seems too fluid. The heroes are too far gone from what I used to understand, maybe. Maybe another reason I have problems with Marvel is because I loved Marvel so much in the late 70s and the 80s and maybe, going into the very early 90s. I remember I slowly gave up on Spider-Man around the time Todd McFarlane took it over. I'm trying to remember when that was. And some other books. And then I kind of came back onto Marvel, ironically, with the Ultimate stuff, which was good, and it was fun, because I knew, I would read the Ultimates, and I would read the Ultimate Fantastic Four, which were both playing with the sort of origin stories of those comics and undoing a lot of, or redoing a lot of what had been done in kind of ironic and different and more adult ways. and that was really fun, but it wasn't messing. I still wanted when I go back to Marvel now, I want a closer to the core kind of group of superheroes than I get. And because each writer kind of has their, I mean, it's true at DC too, each writer does things a different way, but at Marvel it's just more extreme. Each writer totally goes off on their own way. And I've seemed to have been able to accept that more with some writers than others. So I've managed to enjoy the Fantastic Four, even though they're so different than the Fantastic Four I once knew. But somehow maybe Jonathan Hickman changed everything but stayed closer to the core goodness of the characters than some of the other stuff. Some of the Avengers I've read, it's too cynical and too jokey, and this group of heroes, you know, maybe it is more interesting that they don't get along as well and stuff. But it's all pushed further than I can fully enjoy so far. But I have a lot more Marvel to read. I've gotten a lot of Marvel codes from Brandon White, and I have, you know, other Marvel that I'm getting. I love Daredevil and I love Hawkeye, and in a way those stories are simpler. Those are both ground level heroes. They don't go off doing cosmic things, at least in those two books. They probably do when they're in the Avengers. And so they're more rooted in reality, and their moral choices and the things they have to do are more closer to real life. And so far, you know, particularly with Mark Waid's Daredevil, we've got a fairly pure, enjoying being a superhero kind of superhero. So that helps too. So certainly, you know, like those are two of my favorite books, and they're Marvel. I'm not all down on Marvel. It's just overall, I seem to enjoy DC more, and I'm still puzzling over that as someone who grew up thinking of themselves as a Marvel person and hating DC. Basically, I used to think DC was, you know, impossibly wimpy and dumb, but now I'm really enjoying it, and maybe a lot of that has to do with the New 52 and me being able to have jumped on to so many books all at once. So anyway, I'm getting pretty close to work, and I think the battery on this camera is already running down. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, and we'll see if this video worked at all.